Our finale continues, ladies and gentlemen. You have reached the No Name Cinema Society. It is Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. The Oscars are just 4 days away, and this is our Oscar preview of this year. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Betzler. I'm one of your hosts this evening, and tonight we do our Oscar preview. We've done it. This is our fourth time doing an Oscar preview. Our very first show on February 20th of 2015 was an Oscar preview for the 2014 year. And tonight we're going to look at the films that were made in 2017, and we're going to tell you the films that should win based on the nominees, the films that will win based on the nominees, the predictions for your Oscar ballots, and we're also going to tell you the films and performances that should have been nominated in a handful of categories. So let me get straight to my panelists tonight. Once again, as I mentioned on the top 10, Davey, who is supposed to be with us, is unable to join us. But we do have our two other panelists that we had previously announced. Let's see, who am I going to introduce first? Let me introduce 2 blocks away from me, ladies and gentlemen, the always funny Nate Schelke.
Hello.
Welcome back, Nate. Oh, look at the little hand. That's a good way to kick us off there. Nate, of course, was on our review of The Deep Blue Sea, and he did a sound off with us towards the end of the last season. So I'm glad you're able to join us for this special night.
Sound off. And
ladies and gentlemen, our other panelists, we did only one show with us, but it is one of the most successful shows we've had in the last 6 months. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back our ginger, still stuck in the Forbidden City, James Monahan.
I am. I'm stuck here in the red Forbidden City. Since we talked about The Last Emperor last time, I never escaped the Imperial Palace.
Well, I'm glad Henry Puyi is going to let you still communicate with us via Google Hangouts here.
Let me off the leash. But I have to say, it's great to be here, James, back on the show.
All right. So anyway, those are our panels tonight. And I told you what we're going to do. We're going to talk about each of this, several different categories, some of the big categories, and tell you what we think will win, what should win, and what should have been nominated. Each of us will have a choice. Now, the fun part about this is these guys, as I understand it, have not watched my top 10 show yet, where I announced my top 10 films, and Devin and Ryan also announced their top 10 films. So you guys have no idea what weird films that I've enjoyed this year, because my list, it was so crazy.
Oblivious. Yeah.
I really don't want to know. It's probably TMI.
So some of these things that to the audience might seem like, in terms of my should have been nominated for Best Picture, you guys, the audience, will know, but these guys will not. So it'll be interesting.
I have to say right off, I was looking at the little list here, and it seems like you haven't seen Smurfs: The Lost Village yet.
I have not. I did miss that one. And I guess one of the things I should say, because it's a standalone episode, one thing that I said to the group last night is there are 341 films eligible for Oscar awards this year, feature films, not including shorts. So with that said, I've seen 112. Do you guys have a count of how many you've seen?
Maybe about... I'd say 25, maybe.
25, nice. And James, you got a little more than that, I bet.
I'm very surprised I don't have the lowest number here. Thank you, Nate. I feel so much better about myself now.
And
it's
James,
not the number of films you see, it's the quality or something like that.
That's true. And James, you will be pleased to know that on my top 10 was a film that we saw together. I won't tell you which one, but on my top 10 was a film that we saw together.
Whoa, my head's spinning. I saw about 38 or so.
38. Now, I wasn't trying to make you guys feel bad. We do this every year because usually Davey beats me with the current year's films, but I beat him because every year we look back at a previous year. Like this year, I've watched 60 plus 1942 films. And last year we did 66 films. I watched 50, he watched 6. But he watched 109 2016 films, and I only watched 100. So it's a tradition that we reveal our number. It's not about making you guys feel bad.
But you're part of the 100 club. I think that's very impressive.
It was a goal. But Devin has been coming over. I don't know if you guys have been watching the tweets. Devin has been coming over like every night. We've been getting 4 or 5 movies in a day, like cramming.
Wow.
It's been pretty crazy. James raised his hand. So before we get to the categories, do you have a question or a response?
I was just curious. What's your record for the number of films in one day you've watched.
I said it on Saturday, 7. This past Saturday, 7 movies. 5 of them with Devin. 5 of them with Devin.
Oh
and,
my God.
And we
Really
needed
just
a break.
Like sun up to sundown. Yeah.
I started at 7 a.m. We ended at 1 a.m. So, all right, it's time to move on to the categories, ladies and gentlemen. Our first category is, does it work? It does. Best cinematography.
Ah, yes.
First thing is what will win. So I'm going to tell you guys what I think will win. You guys agree or disagree. This year, ladies and gentlemen, Roger Deakins is a longtime nominee, never won before, probably one of the top 3 cinematographers of the last 30 years, and he's never won in spite of multiple nominations. This is his year. He wins for Blade Runner 2049. Does anybody disagree with that?
I'm not going to disagree, but I will say, like, to me, I just saw like Dunkirk in IMAX, and like that and Shape of Water like could have easily won in any other year.
We'll get to what should win in a second, but does anybody disagree?
No, it's hands down. It's him. Yeah.
So theoretically, if Roger Deakins had won one Oscar and not had all those other nominations, would he have less of a chance of winning?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
probably.
For a genre film like this that is so color corrected and has so much digital enhancement, I think if he'd won before, I don't think he would win, quite frankly.
Well, I think we're all in agreement. He will win.
Okay, so then that brings us up to who should win. My script says Davey is supposed to go first in this, but he's not here. So, I forgot to crack open my goose. I need to be drinking during the Oscar preview.
You're definitely not drunk enough.
Yeah, James, who should win?
Well, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but Dan Laustsen? Yeah,
you're a Shape of Water guy?
I am. There's so much to the cinematography in this. It's very stylized because it's based on, this tradition of B-movie horror films. There's just so much expression going on in it. I got to vote for the most expressionist film. I love it.
Nate, what do you think should win based on these nominees?
I mean, I think that Deakins should win, but I will say, like, I loved the cinematography of Shape of Water. That bathroom scene is gorgeous.
I agree, it's visually stunning in that regard. It loses points for me because that bathroom scene, to me, story-wise, felt a little forced. It was a real bump in the movie with me, and I talked about it last night in a little bit of the top 10. I specifically mentioned that moment as something that I felt like was contrived story-wise in order to get the cool visual.
How else are you going to have sex? Come on.
In the tub.
There's just need room to move. Come on.
For me, I always tend to favor cinematography that features more interiors, which James can tell you very specifically is sort of a higher degree of difficulty versus those films that win Oscars for their vistas, which really should win Oscars for their location managers. I think Bruno Delbonnel's work in The Darkest Hour, though the cinematography is not necessarily in my top 5 cinematography out of the nominees, I think it's the best. I think it managed to look nuanced, rich, and realistic all at the same time, underexposed just enough. It's no match for what I have in my should have been nominated coming up, but I do think the film looked nice. And I'm impressed that the film with that many interiors got a cinematography nomination. That was kind of cool. I didn't like Shape of Water. Do you guys disagree strongly about Darkest Hour?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Shape of Water is all interiors, even when they're outside, it's obviously on a set from what I can tell.
But it's stylized, like you said, whereas Darkest Hour is a little more realistic, and I felt like it found beauty within the realism.
Well, that's because it's a docudrama. But no, you're right. It had beautiful interiors. I unfortunately watched the film on a laptop, and I saw Shape of Water on the big screen, so that may have biased me.
Okay. Nate, anything about Darkest Hour before I move on?
I mean, yeah, like maybe that's part of it. Like to me, the other 3 that we've talked about just, visually sort of grab you. And I would push back on the landscape because I think that Dunkirk is a feat. All the things going on and such, perhaps leading to other categories, but still, I thought visually was stunning as well.
We've all touched on the films in this category except for one. Happens to be the one with a female cinematographer, Rachel Morrison.
Oh, good point. Good point.
It's true. I mean, like, I feel like it's good that female cinematographer finally got nominated. I would have nominated Ellen Kuras years ago for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm glad that somebody got nominated. I don't know that Mudbound is the best looking film I've seen in a long time.
I just watched it this afternoon, and I think the other elements much stronger than the cinematography of it.
James, you brought it up. Do you have something you wanted to say? Or did you just want to call us misogynist and then move on?
Hit and run. I'm woke like that. Speaking of interiors, I thought the interiors were very naturalistic, but also very dramatic in Mudbound. And I loved going back and forth between the bright open scenes and these really dark, moody interiors.
I felt like the movie kind of looked basic, like almost TV movie-like to some degree.
Yeah, well, that's why it's not my number one pick.
Speaking of, that's a good segue, James, to our should have been nominated, the film that should have been nominated for Best Cinematography. Let's see, who do I have going first here? I have James going first, so you get to go first again, James. What should have been nominated that wasn't?
Well, there were 3 films this year that were very post-apocalyptic and dark, and I'm thinking of Logan. Well, not post-apocalyptic for Detroit. That's one of them. And
Pick
War
one.
for the Planet of the Apes. And so, but it wasn't the year for a post-apocalyptic dark film because we have enough of that in real life right now. But I'm going to give it to the cinematographer of Detroit, Barry Ackroyd. There's something to be said about the documentary feel of it. I mean, he specializes in this, having done stuff like Captain Phillips in United 93
And Hurt Locker.
and The Hurt Locker. He put us back in the time. I felt I was watching footage from, I think it's 1967. It was just riveting, and it was just great storytelling. The cinematography put me in that time and place and also added so much tension.
Detroit did not make my top 5 cinematography, but it was, some of the audience remember, it did make my top 10 films of the year for what it's worth. You have to check it out to see what number. But I do love Barry Ackroyd. Nate, what do you have should have been nominated that was not?
You know, I can't remember how you say the name, but the Netflix Okja, or how do you say it?
Okja.
I really like that one, and I don't have the name of the cinematographer in front of me. It's similar, had that kind of documentary style, then going into this kind of fable type of thing. They were called like District 9, but with a much cuddlier lead.
I will say that Okja was on Ryan's top 10 of the year.
Okay, yeah.
Another Okja mention. I have another film that was on my top 10 that I have should have been nominated, but there's a caveat to it. I think the film, ladies and gentlemen, is a Best Picture nominee. Initially, when I looked at it, I was shocked that it wasn't nominated. Phantom Thread was the most gorgeous cinematography I saw all year. It's very lush, and its color palette greatly informs the mood and the tone. But it didn't get a nomination because it technically did not have a credited cinematographer.
Whoa.
There's no credited cinematographer on the film if you watch the credits.
EA is taking credit?
He did it himself, and he did not take credit.
Whoa.
So technically, it would be ineligible for a nomination. And I didn't realize that until I started working on the script. I just well, that was clearly the best cinematography I saw all year. And then went to find the cinematographer's name and then realized that he did it himself.
I thought you were going to say this was yet another job replaced by artificial intelligence.
That's the same thing, really. With that said, my then choice, if you discount Phantom Thread, would be a film called A Fantastic Woman, which is nominated in the Best Foreign Language category. Cinematography by a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Ezureta. I didn't love the film per se, but I love the look. Like another film that I have in my top 5, The Florida Project. Terrific composition, use of color, and lighting. It looked pretty fantastic. Do you guys have anything on any of those films?
Yeah, well, Phantom Thread, I know wasn't eligible, but it reminded me of The Master. I mean, another great PTA film.
Which I don't think he shot himself.
No, but it looked very similar. Of course, they were both shot on 70 millimeter, but a lot of production design was similar and kind of the graininess. Florida Project, thanks for giving props to another really documentary style film. I mean, it takes a lot more skill than people realize to shoot that stuff.
Would you say that Detroit was your number 1 cinematography, or was it the should win person? Was it Shape of Water? Was that your favorite cinematography, Shape of Water versus Detroit?
Yes, I'm going to pick Shape of Water for my favorite.
Okay. And Nate, same thing. Was Okja your favorite cinematography, or did you like Shape of Water best?
I like Shape of Water best, I think. But I also just was like, I really enjoyed the visuals of Blade Runner. It just also, to me, like, I didn't love the movie so well, whereas Shape of Water was just...
Yeah.
Shapely.
None of my top 5 cinematography choices are in amongst the nominees. And that's the same thing, actually, segue-wise, that's the same thing for our next category, which is Best Adapted Screenplay. Again, I have 0 of the 5 nominees on my list. The one I think will win is my former boss. James Ivory will win his first Oscar, I think. I worked for him in Merchant Ivory between 1996 and 1998. He's never actually won an Oscar. Films that he's directed have won writing Oscars, specifically Howard's End, and Room with a View was the other one. Does anyone disagree that Jim's going to win his first Oscar?
I have to tell you, James, I agree with you 100%.
Why do you keep calling me James?
Because of that arrangement we had, you told me to call you by my name.
Oh, I get it now. I get it. All right, he agrees 100%. I get it now.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I guess I wasn't supposed to spill that.
I'm going to call it for Sorky, actually. I'm going to say Molly's Game.
Wow, an upset. Now, you say Molly's Game's going to win. You know, he won already for Social Network.
I don't know. It's just the buzz. In my circles, I hear more buzz about Molly's Game than about Call Me By Your Name.
I've not heard that buzz, and Call Me By Your Name has won all the precursor awards. So this will be an interesting thing to see which of us is going to be right on Sunday night. And Nate, you will be with me, so we will find out.
It's hard to bet against James Ivory because he's so old. He might die. Very
It's kind of amazing he's still alive, quite frankly, because he was 70. He turned 70 while I was there, and that was 20 plus years ago.
Whoa.
So almost 20. I ended 20 years ago. So he's almost 90. He has to be almost 90. Nate, who should win out of the nominees?
I think Scott Frank and company should win for Logan. That movie is like the Unforgiven of comic book movies. It's great. I just loved it.
I boycotted Logan because I'm so sick of these spin-offs of the X-Men universe that I was just like done. You know, had this prejudice against it. I still haven't seen it. James.
It was a hard one. There's a lot of anti-Aaron Sorkin talk out there these days. I don't know why. Maybe he's just too Aaron Sorkin'd out. But I'm not going to give it to him. I wish I could give it to Mudbound because I was impressed by juggling all the different points of view in that film. But the dialogue was sometimes tired and it got very melodramatic. Nate, you're the man. I'm going to go with your choice, Logan. Especially the first half hour when they're at that first location. They did all that character work.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. It wasn't just like this action film. It did not seem like a generic superhero film at all.
The best superhero movie scenes are those moments where you take away the powers and just have them be human.
I guess I am sometimes Sorkin'd out, but now is not one of those times. And I understand the backlash of Sorkin because a lot of times all his characters sound the same. And there's clips online that sort of show this in a very amusing way on YouTube and whatnot. But I still think out of these nominees, the film I enjoyed the most was Molly's Game. Now, I don't like the amount of voiceover. I don't like how clever all the characters seem to be at times, but it covered a lot of ground in an entertaining way. I didn't see Logan, and I didn't super enjoy a lot of the other films. So for me, by default, Molly's Game would be the one I would vote for out of this list. I'll be very happy, Nate, if he does win again. I don't think he will, but I'll be happy if he does.
I think you bring up a good point, Jonathan. I mean, and I'm going to call you Jonathan now. I think our little thing is done. Sorry.
I feel better about that, strangely.
Nate and I are together now. I'm going to call him James. I'd rather watch a film about a bunch of smart characters like Molly's Game than about a bunch of dumb characters like I, Tonya. I liked I, Tonya, but I would rewatch Molly's Game because it keeps you on your toes. And I didn't catch everything because people are talking so fast and being so smart. And there's that layer of density built into every Sorkin script.
That same point came up for totally different movies, as I recall, last night in the top 10 about smart characters versus dumb characters. So it's interesting that you say that as well. All right. So that brings us to should have been nominated. Davey goes first. Oh, wait. No, Nate, you're first. Who should have been nominated? That was not in the best adapted screenplay. And I hope you did the research to know what was adapted and what wasn't.
I mean, that's the problem is that I don't know that I did do the research. But I'll throw something out there, a movie that I saw an early version of, and so I know it's a little bit different, and I can only assume it got better. But I really enjoyed Wind River.
I have to stop you here because we'll have to talk about it in the next category. It is not an adapted screenplay.
It's the original. Okay.
Do you have another one?
Come back to me.
Okay. James.
Yeah, when I saw this film, I really wanted to go out and read the book it was based on. All the Money in the World. I'm surprised it didn't get more nominations too. It's a really compelling story with a really relevant theme. I mean, obviously money and greed is a hot topic these days, especially with the gap between the middle class and the 1% that increasingly rule the world as our country becomes more of a plutocracy. I was riveted by all the characters in the film. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know the real story that well. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It was great.
This is where I get to disagree with you wholeheartedly because I did not enjoy All the Money in the World, and I think the script was its problem. I agree with the one thing you said, it's a great story. The actual events it's like fodder for a great movie, and the fact that the script failed to capture that, I found to be very disappointing. I found the script to be the issue because of a lack of character development. I feel like it was plot driven and therefore wound up being dry for me, and not emotionally or cerebrally engaging at all. And so great disappointment for me. So I apologize, but I have to disagree with you.
We'll agree to disagree.
Usually there's like shades of agreement, but that one I'm on the other opposite end of the scale. I'm going to surprise you guys with mine. Once again, I'm very surprising. And now I'm going to consider this film adapted because it technically comes from the same book as the 1995 film that I didn't, which I've never seen the 95 film, but apparently this is a sequel to it. I thought it was a reboot, but it's really a sequel. I'm talking about Jumanji. Jumanji, I thought was one of the most fun films I've seen in a long time. It's a super clever, inventive take on the material that makes it relevant to a modern audience. Last night on the top 10, I called it Wizard of Oz for a modern age. I also said last night that the screenplay was the real hero of the movie. It has an airtight 3-act structure without ever really feeling formulaic, and while almost always remaining fun, inventive, and imaginative. I love this film, and I thought the screenplay was just terrific. Nate laughed at me. Fun screenplays should not be discounted.
No, definitely not. That's why I'm saying you should see Smurfs: The Lost Village,
You know what? Jumanji surprised me enough that maybe I will. I will see Smurfs: The Lost Village.
I maybe they lost the village.
How do you lose the whole village? I don't understand.
You have to see it to find out.
Have you seen Jumanji, Nate?
No, I haven't. I almost saw it at Christmas, and I wish that I did because I've heard great things. And that's what I've almost resoundingly heard is that like better than the original.
For all that it's fun, it actually has some depth to it with the really like that, like what I said last night is like this message of becoming the person you want to be, like may seem trite and childish, but I think it's done very well, effectively, and in a new way that I think lands even for someone of as advanced in age as me. James, do you hate Jumanji?
Actually, I may withdraw my All the Money in the World nomination. You may have convinced me. I was a little bit unsure if Jumanji qualified for this year because I saw it so late in the season, but I was really impressed. I think the film benefited from low expectations, as you mentioned, going into the film. And it also relates to a film I'm going to mention later in this podcast that I liked because I liked one of the writers involved. And it's a clever concept that improves on the original. This concept of, since you're putting people in a video game and they're playing characters, of them having to have completely different physicalities than their real life counterparts.
Avatars. I think it touches on this modern concept. There's something existential at the heart of this fun movie.
One problem I had is it gave great character work to Jack Black, who was playing the popular girl trapped in a middle-aged man's body. Gave great character work to The Rock, this nerdy kid trapped in the body of The Rock.
Karen Gillan was amazing, I thought, too.
The character who becomes Kevin Hart is a black teenager.
He's a problem.
And wasn't that imaginative, making him a black guy as an avatar. And also, I didn't think acting-wise it hurt because Kevin Hart wasn't really acting like the original dude. And that character became somewhat of a minstrel. Sorry to be all woke again, but he provided a lot of the jokey jokes.
I'm going back to I'm going to go back to my initial notes when I wrote it. The major performances are all amazing except for maybe Kevin Hart. He brought zero of his football player real life character to his avatar. So exactly. I exactly agree the same thing. The rest of the movie was enough for me. Like it was too much fun. Like I can overlook that. I'm glad I found another Jumanji lover. I thought I'd be alone on that.
No, you're not alone, James. I'm back to calling you James.
Oh, okay. Thanks for announcing it, though, to keep now I know. All right, moving on. Best original screenplay is our next category here. And this one is actually one of the toughest categories. I think there's an argument here. I think Get Out is going to win. Jordan Peele's going to win. But I do see a scenario where Three Billboards could win. I don't think any of the other three win, but it's Get Out versus Three Billboards as far as I'm concerned. I think Get Out comes over the top because I think Three Billboards will win in other categories, and this is the award to Jordan Peele. Like, they like to spread it out, as we saw last year. So I think Get Out wins. But if the love for Three Billboards is so strong, it could win here. But I'm acknowledging that. But I'm predicting Get Out. Does anybody disagree?
I don't. I mean, Get Out was a memorable film early in the season and very topical, obviously, in the era of Black Lives Matter. And so I see it winning over the white dude.
The white Irish dude. Nate, do you disagree?
I mean, it's interesting because I think Get Out's going to win. However, there's certainly been a groundswell for The Big Sick. But I think that's like more of like an indie Golden Globes kind of crowd versus the Academy. And so I certainly think it's going to be Get Out. I think it's deserved, but also like in lieu of any other awards for that.
It's not going to win another award the rest of the evening. Yeah.
No, there's no director and no picture. Yeah.
I will go first in the should win because I do think Get Out should win out of the nominees. It is my second favorite of the Best Picture nominees. Did not make my top 10, spoiler alert. I do think it was a good film. I think it's original and important, as James mentioned, with a couple legendary moments that it earns. Like a film that was on my top 10, a film called Colossal, it played with genre in an effective and relevant way. I was impressed by the movie. I fell short of loving it, but I liked it quite a bit. Nate, what should win?
There's a lot of great ones in this category.
Do you want me to come back to you again?
No. Like, but that's the thing. Like, The Big Sick, I think, is like my genre that I love is romantic comedy, and I think it's like a really great romantic comedy, unconventional. But I think like as far as just like memorable. It's like James brings up a great point. It's like that movie, I think it debuted in February. It's like, it's amazing that it's like stuck around. So I think it should win. In the same way that I'm talking about like Logan and Scott Frank of like him turning this genre like on its head, skewering of it, I think Get Out is certainly that. Like it's so sardonic in its skewering of the genre and just making it so topical, but in a way that I don't think will be forgotten.
James.
Here. Should win. I'm going to give it to Lady Bird. One of my favorite films of the year. I know you're hiding your head. Apparently you disagree, but I think it's a tapestry coming of age story. It's built upon vignettes. Part of it I could relate because I grew up in California and I went to Catholic school like Greta Gerwig. So I could relate to all the mean nuns. But all these little vignettes added up to an experience that I could relate to about my teenage years and about the struggles of that time, even though, I was a guy, obviously.
What did you just say?
Last time I checked, hey, I could have had a change, since high school. You never know.
I love Lady Bird, but I just feel like, what was the movie with the pregnant girl?
Juno
won, and I don't think it's going to happen again. This twee kind of story.
I agree. Juno will not win again. 10 years later, it will not repeat.
But it has the Juno weight, it's this very like lightweight, I would
argue that Lady Bird's a little more personal than Juno.
For sure. But it also lives in that the world that Greta Gerwig came from, I
didn't expect much from Lady Bird. The best thing I can say for Lady Bird is I didn't hate it. I would even say it's my fourth favorite out of the Best Picture nominees, and I think it's my second favorite in this category. It's basic, it's not bad, is what I would say about Lady Bird. I was going to start with James. We already know Nate's should have been nominated. It's Wind River.
Yeah. But I think like it was a really interesting story. It could have been like a very conventional movie. At its heart, it's like kind of a thriller, but at the same time, like just the setting, the relationship just made it just a really interesting movie. And then it kind of had two parts to it. I thought like structure-wise, it was interesting.
Did you like Hell or High Water from the year before?
Oh, what a great film!
Oh, that was great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the same writer?
Because of the weather, like you're just stuck somewhere, and then so it creates this like setting that's, it's frightening.
So did you say because of the leather, you're stuck somewhere? Is that what I heard?
Weather.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because of the leather, there's a big leather shipment that the truck turns over, and people just can't get out of town.
They're stuck by the leather. They're trapped.
I think you were thinking of the Gimp scene in Pulp Fiction. Because of the leather, you're stuck.
I was hoping.
Stuck by the leather, yeah.
Since you have my list in front of you of all the films that I've watched this year, the 112 of them, then you know that I did not get around to Wind River. So, James, what do you think should have been nominated?
Not Wind River, unfortunately. I thought it was like a wannabe Coen Brothers film that disappointed. But anyway, sorry. I'm gonna say, if I could create an Oscar category, it would be Best Weepy. There was only one film that really made me cry this year, and I gotta thank the Story Factory over at Pixar for making Coco. So the whole team, and it was a big team that wrote Coco, I think should have been nominated.
It definitely affected me emotionally. My problem with the screenplay is I do feel like a lot of the Pixar and Disney animated movies, they're both headed by John Lasseter. They're similar. My buddy Adam Goldberg, who writes the show The Goldbergs, can tell you they write a paint by numbers kind of way. And Coco was more successful than a lot of stuff they had recently, not financially, creatively too, but I feel the formula. Like I feel frustrated by it. I don't find it surprising or engaging as much as I used to. There's a blueprint that the company uses. The one that I felt was away from that is Inside Out from a couple years ago. I thought that was a really special screenplay, but Coco seemed to follow the formula. And even though I was emotionally engaged, I was not surprised by anything. You could tell what's coming. You know what I mean? It was very obvious to me.
But I was curious, since it is a Pixar, did John Ratzenberg show up?
He did.
Did that happen?
He's basically the only non-Hispanic in the voice cast. If you look at the cast as it's rolling up, it's all these Hispanic.
Awesome, but that's what he's always said. Like Lasseter's like, he's our good luck charm. So,
So my should have been nominated. James, you're good, right? I can move on.
Move on.
Is another one I bet you guys have not seen. This was in trying to watch as many movies as I did, I just got as much stuff as I could that was available on Netflix or whatever. And this one, I saw it. It surprised the hell out of me. It's a terrific script, touching, funny, and sharp. And it's from an SNL cast member. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigsby Bear is a film that I think should have been nominated in this category for Best Original Screenplay. It makes the fish out of water concept seem fresh again. Fresh fish. Nuanced details that rang true but were also hilarious. Extremely well-drawn relationships that were plausible, even though there's a fantastic element to the world. The world of Brigsby was thorough and fascinating, great world building. Fun, but also complicated, that has something to say about mental health care. Surprisingly wonderful film and a great original screenplay. I don't suppose either of you have seen it.
No, but I thought The Shape of Water made the fish out of water story fresh again.
Nate?
Well, as you were describing it, I haven't seen it, but who is it again? It's
Kyle Mooney. Kyle Mooney wrote the screenplay.
Right.
And
yes.
He basically, it's a darker version of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt in the sense that as a baby, he was kidnapped by Mark Hamill and they raise him as his own. They keep him locked up, but they create a world for him. He's only ever seen one TV show, and it's this TV show called Brigsby Bear, but it's something that Mark Hamill creates for him to teach him about the world and stuff. So his only connection to the outside world is Brigsby Bear, created by Mark Hamill. It's really clever concept.
The Truman Show meets Room.
There you go. I love that. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, acting awards. Let's do it. Best Supporting Actress is our first category here. Some of you may have seen a vlog I did in December. Davey and I were at the screening for Darkest Hour. I did early predictions of who were going to win the big awards. And I predicted that night that Allison Janney was going to win Best Supporting Actress for I, Tonya. And I still think that. I still think she's the favorite. Does anybody disagree?
The order that I saw this was, first I saw Lady Bird. And I was like, Laurie Metcalf is going to get nominated and win. If it was any other year, I think she would have. But no, it's like Janney all the way. We should bet money on this. There's no way that she is not going to win.
But I agree with you. So why would I take that bet?
We should just place the bet together, not against each other.
Okay, good. James, do you disagree?
I think she will win. I don't think she should. She's a very popular actress, and her West Wing fame still follows her wherever she goes.
And as I said in that blog that we did, at the time I thought it was close between Metcalf and Janney, but I actually thought the difference was that Janney was more popular amongst the actors. Metcalf has been a stage actress for the last 10 years and not as well known to the Academy voters.
Yeah, you've predicted who I think should win. She was on Broadway last year, but Allison Janney was on Broadway as well, playing Lisa Kittredge in 6 Degrees of Separation, and she did not get a Tony nomination. I thought she was screwed for that, actually. I thought she should have been. So I felt bad for her, but not bad enough
it's
to
the
think
opposite.
she should win.
It's that's the theater community saying, like, we're embracing, our theater people like Laurie Metcalf in Doll's House Part 2 is, I believe, what you're referring to. And we're shunning the TV actress that's trying to, make a name. I see the Tonys doing that kind of stuff all the time.
She's TV actress, but she's first a theater actress. She's Steppenwolf.
No, I know that, but I mean the Tony committee doesn't necessarily see it that way. Like her roots in stage are long gone. I mean,
she turned her back.
She's a terrific actor. I'm not saying nothing against her.
So she's one of the original Steppenwolf company. I mean,
we're just guessing what the Tony and Oscar committees are thinking. Like they're voting.
Sure.
So James has already talked about his should win. What I will say is this is a good category for me because there's actually, in my top 5 supporting actresses, there are 2 people in this category that that are in my top 5. That's the most of any category all night long. So that's kind of exciting. And one of them is the one James just talked about. Good, James. You think Laurie Metcalf should win?
I do, and you were right. I saw her in Doll's House Part 2 twice. I went back a second time. She was so riveting, and just like her stage work, she is doing so much moment to moment in Lady Bird. She really captures the complexity of a human being. Just all these like conflicting desires and motives, and her passive aggressiveness was done in a fresh way as the mother character. I loved it. I mean, but I love that film, but I love what she brought to the relationship of mother and daughter.
Obviously like the performance as well. Nate, what do you think should win?
This is the thing. This is my biggest criticism of I, Tonya is I wish that they didn't do it as an out-and-out comedy because I think that her portrayal is like just a powerhouse performance. People will remember this image of Allison Janney.
Do you think Janney should win?
With the bird.
You're in the Janney should win camp.
I think she should, yeah. I
already said that I had 2 people that were in my top 5. Laurie Metcalf was one of them, but she was not my absolute favorite. My number 1 choice is nominated in this category, and it was a surprise nomination. One of 2 nominations on the day where I audibly gasped in excitement. I was so disappointed by the nominations as they were coming out, although they were predictable. But this one was a surprise, and it was a good one. It has 0 precursor nominations for this lady, which shocked me because it's prototypically a perfect supporting performance. It's Leslie Manville in Phantom Thread. It was my favorite supporting actress performance of the whole year. It's a complete and complex 3-dimensional character with an arc. Every choice she does is detailed and interesting. The luscious performance, an amazing character. It doesn't maybe have that moment that Nate talks about that fits in reels. I just think it's such nuanced work. Hey, Andrea.
Hello. I agree.
Oh, nice. Andrea, agrees with me. Nice. I got 2 married men I'm doing the podcast with. I don't know what I'm doing. James, how do you guys feel about Leslie Manville?
Hey, it was great. I agree. It was totally naturalistic, but it was very graceful. 3 of the 5 nominees played very low-key characters. Mary J. Blige, very low-key. Octavia Spencer, very supporting. And Manville, of course, was this, supporting character to the more out there character played by Daniel Day-Lewis.
She was the Rock, though, too.
She was the Rock.
She had a lot of strength. I wouldn't call her low-key, say, but
I think it's no surprise that the 2 most outre characters, out there characters, are the ones we think are, most likely to win. Obviously, that over-the-top character in I, Tonya.
And that's my problem with Allison Janney, quite frankly.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it's a cartoon, even though it's based on a real person.
Nate, your wife agrees with me. How do you feel?
I'm fine with it.
Do you want to wait till she leaves the room before you're fine with it?
I just I don't know. Like to me, for me, it's somewhat hard to separate with with that performance because I just didn't enjoy the movie. And it's funny that Andrea would say that though too, because she hated it as well.
It was on my top 10.
You could have like an intricate, quiet work that is just that stays with you, you know, like Anthony Hopkins Remains of the Day kind of thing, but it doesn't have to be showy. You know, I think it's deserved. I know it's a cartoon, but that's why I wish that they had done it as a drama. Like if she had played it,
yeah, no, I mean I don't disagree with you.
It would have been interesting, you know.
I will say the one thing about Phantom Thread is the first film ever to appear on all 3 of our top 10s. So that's an interesting little tidbit.
That's what PTA does, right? He disquiets people, you know. So in that respect, he did his job.
Yeah. Okay, so should have been nominated. Nate, who do you got?
Should have been nominated. Come back to me. I got a review. Sorry. I do all my homework.
James, you have one, I bet?
Yeah, this is going to be an odd one. And it's even odder we mentioned her already. I didn't think she would come up at all. But I'm kind of nominating her because of her work in 2 films. But Karen Gillan, I am biased a bit because she's a ginger, but she showed incredible range this year playing Nebula, which is Gamara's estranged sister in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then playing this kind of Lara Croft type character in Jumanji. But I'm nominating her for her work in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's mainly a comedy and probably one of the funniest comedies of the year, in addition to being a superhero film.
And but she brought you and I saw together.
Yes, and I thought she brought a level of gravitas to it, this angst-filled, bitter sister, and it really added another layer to that film. And I think there are great things ahead for Karen Gillan, not just because she's amazingly attractive and a ginger and Scottish.
It's funny because I also have her in my top 5. If I were a one-man nominating committee, she would also be in it. But I had her for Jumanji, and I did see Guardians, and I felt like she made more of an impact in Jumanji. I think about the kissing scene, which is silly but also perfect. Dance fighting scene, for example, which is partly stunt choreography, but also the way that she interacts with those people even before that. It's a great comic performance with some depth. I thought she brought a lot to that movie and was a standout to me as well. And I agree with everything you said about her future. But she's not the one I chose per se, but Nate's going to give me his first.
You never get anyone nominated for like a comedy and certainly not like an out and out comedy. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to say,
except maybe Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids 2011.
Did she get nominated?
She did.
Okay, that's true. Okay, fine. But in that vein, I will say Tiffany Haddish for Girls Trip.
Tiffany Haddish won the New York Film Critics Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, like McCarthy in that movie, it's like you just have to pay attention to this person.
You're not alone.
I got to see this film.
You know, Oscars, it's like it's very rare, and even when it is, it's not like an out and out, like, you know, it's like a Mira Sorvino, you know, type of thing.
I mean, I think both of us with Karen Gillan, I think both of these films are comedies that James mentioned for Karen Gillan, and so I think we agree with you in that regard. I'm going to go with my should have been nominated, and James might appreciate this because it's someone that also comes out of the theater, and this is the film that I'm going to refer to is based on a play. And I'm going to honor an actress that has a 60-year career. It's pretty rare to have a 60-year career. Oh. This actress first appeared with James Dean in East of Eden in 1955, but still had a performance this year that should have been nominated for an Academy Award. It's Lois Smith in the film Marjorie Prime, which is based on a play. It's a great performance, but aside from that, it's amazing how Lois Smith has adapted her acting style as acting styles have changed over the years. Marjorie Prime is a great play, probably never should have been a movie, but I cannot deny the impressive performance by Smith, who originated the role on stage off-Broadway. The entire history of the character, both real and imagined, plays out across her face and in her line readings, accentuated by the camera, adding detail that we may have missed on stage. It's my second favorite performance in this category behind Leslie Manville, but it's masterful achievement nonetheless. And also my top 5, of course, I've talked about Karen Gillan and Laurie Metcalf already. Both would be nominees if I were a one-man nominating committee. Guys, has anybody seen Marjorie Prime?
No.
So I saw Marjorie Prime off Broadway at Playwrights Horizons with Lois Smith, and I loved the play, loved her performance. Lois Smith is beloved out here in New York. She was also in a play called John, written by Annie Baker, who is probably one of the most celebrated hip playwrights out here. Yeah, it was a great performance. I look forward to seeing the film. I'm really curious how they adapted it.
Not well. I mean, like it's pretty staid, and contained. But the writing is so clearly vivid and beautiful. So I would have liked to have seen it on stage, but the performance is amazing. Actually, and Tim Robbins is pretty great as well. I think. Do you see Stephen Root in that role off Broadway?
Oh, whew. Sorry, I'm blanking who it was.
I think Stephen Root originated it. I don't know if that means you would have seen it, but
yeah. Lois Smith, was she the baddie lady in Minority Report? I don't know.
She was in Minority Report. She was the inventor.
That's right. I mean, she left a big impression on me in that film.
All right, so moving on to Best Supporting Actor. This one is another one that I have 0 of 5. None of these nominees are in my top 5. The will win, I think, is Sam Rockwell. I think it's a great actor, but not a great performance. That's my personal opinion. I think it's a cartoon character. It's not even the best performance in this movie in this category, but he has the arc that surprised people. And so I think people want to give the character an award because that's what they want Trump's America to do. They want Trump's America to pull Sam Rockwell, so they're going to give him an Oscar. He's a great actor for sure, but not for this movie. I wish it weren't so. But does anybody disagree that Sam Rockwell will win?
I kind of do disagree, actually. And I know he won the Golden Globe, right? And I see your point. It's very over the top.
And he won the SAG Award.
Won the SAG Award. Yeah.
And he won the BAFTA.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to vote for a surprise here. I'm going to vote for Christopher Plummer winning.
That's fascinating to me because I was thinking about when this came out because I was like, the fact that he's on here means that people like just voted for him, I think, without having seen the film because the redo was in like November, when they did all the reshoots and stuff. So it's like people were voting for something having not seen the movie yet, which is crazy.
People love the story. And honestly, his nomination is less a nomination for Christopher Plummer and more a nomination against Kevin Spacey. Like it's really
right.
I also think he came in and I don't see the film without him. Like, I can't imagine Kevin Spacey doing a better job. And I understand Ridley Scott had Plummer picked out originally anyway. He was perfectly cast.
I saw the trailer before the switch, and Kevin Spacey looked pretty damn good. I'll say that much. A lot of makeup, but still.
I know there's that groundswell, but Golden Globes, there's just 100 voters. It's not like a big thing. I actually think it's going to be Willem Dafoe. I think the Florida Project.
Three whole different. Back in December when I predicted the early winners, I predicted Willem Dafoe, but it's been no one but Sam Rockwell since.
I just think there's going to be like a splitting of the vote with the various people and stuff, and I think it's going to be Dafoe.
This is fascinating. You people are trying to fill out your Oscar ballots. You must be pretty confused right now. I did not expect any category to have this much of a disagreement. I would suspect Willem Dafoe has a better chance than Christopher Plummer, quite frankly. If Willem Dafoe won, I think it was also an example of people voting without having seen the movie, because I feel like that would be a vote for Willem Dafoe's very wide-ranging career and his only second nomination in all that time. So, but yeah, I mean, like the tea leaves say Sam Rockwell as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I understand not wanting to put a lot of faith in the Golden Globes, but when it's Golden Globe, the big one to watch is the SAG Awards, because the majority of the voters for the Academy are actors. Yeah. 2/3 of them, I think. So that's the one to really, really watch. I haven't seen a chink in that armor. I think Christopher Plummer is an interesting story, and that's why he gets the nomination. I'd be surprised because it's also a film that has no other support. It has 0 other nominations.
Like I said, I thought it was underrepresented in the nominations. I know you didn't like the film, but I was riveted by Plummer's performance. Now, I also agree with you, though, Jonathan, that Woody Harrelson gives a better performance than Sam Rockwell. It's a more interesting performance.
It's not the showy one, but I agree. It is the better performance.
Oh, well, that's a good segue to what should win out of these 5 nominees. We've pretty much covered we've covered at least 4 of the 5 nominees at this point in our will win. So that's interesting. That's unusual. Who should win? And let's see who I have here going first, and it looks like James gets to go first. Let me cut to you, James.
Yeah, I think I already said I liked Plummer, so I'm going to go should and will. And I'll say, of course, people watching at home wanting to fill out your ballot, the safe choice is Sam Rockwell if you want to win the ballot. But if you're in a room with a bunch of JBs, maybe it's a good idea to pick a couple of dark horses, and I think Plummer's the dark horse.
But you think he should win?
Yes.
Nate, who should win?
In the same tradition, I agree. Like if you're going chalk, rock chalk Jayhawk, you would go with Sam Rockwell. Okay. But I say this is the category take a chance with, because I think it's going to be upset, and I think it's going to be Willem Dafoe, and I think he should win. It's easy to win and stand out if you are like Janny with a character that's like so huge, but it's so impressive to just be there and be this person like Willem Dafoe in the Florida Project.
It's a lovely performance, and I know he did a lot of research for it. I think he lived out there in Florida for a couple of weeks to prep, right?
So, I mean, I like the film. Although my favorite performance in this category is the one we haven't mentioned. And I didn't love the film, but I do love this actor, Richard Jenkins, in The Shape of Water. I do think does the best work in this category, slightly beating out Woody Harrelson for me, and then Willem Dafoe after that. And it's funny because I had Richard Jenkins a couple years ago. He was my should have been nominated for his work in Bone Tomahawk. He's always terrific. In this film, in many ways, he's a reflection of Sally Hawkins' performance. He's her voice, so he's feeling her thoughts and feeling his own as well. So it's an incredibly layered performance in that regard. I have Richard Jenkins here as should have win. I don't think he will, and I don't think this is the category to take your chances. I think if anybody's vulnerable, I think Allison Janney might be vulnerable. And here's in the last category, and here's why. I think that the Phantom Thread has got so many more nominations than it was predicted to. And Leslie Manville was not expected to get a nomination. And so there's the theory, and this is a Marcia Gay Harden and Pollock kind of theory, that because it got nominations, it's getting people to see it that hadn't initially seen it. And now that they're watching it, they're like, oh my God, this Leslie Manville performance. Like I said, I think Allison Janney is going to win, but if there is a dark horse, I think if there's a surprise, it could be Manville.
Well,
you want to take
that brings up a good, just technical question, which I am uncertain about. So like SAG Awards, we vote the Friday before the Sunday of the awards. Is it like right before the awards?
I don't know. For the Spirit Awards, I voted on the 16th. And the award, the thing was due on the show was on the 3rd, March 3rd. Yeah. So I think the ballots are in by now. Back to this category. So I have Richard Jenkins. We haven't mentioned him yet. Do you guys have anything you want to say about Richard Jenkins?
He's great. He's amazing. He's a great character actor. Will just, slay me forever because 6 feet under. I think this is the Judi Dench territory here. I think like his screen time is maybe 10 minutes tops.
No, I don't think so. I think he's got a decent amount of screen. He goes with her on the extrication, and he has his own scenes with the diner owner.
Getting on the guy in the diner. He provides a nice subplot, and it's a lovely performance. Like you say, he's a voice for Sally Hawkins. Yeah, he's a joy to watch. I mean, I think it's a strong category we have here. I think all of these actors are pretty good. I think Rockwell's least impressive of the nominees, but Jenkins is just as strong as the rest.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Rockwell's the least impressive. Nate, what were you going to say?
I said, but he dances.
He does. That is true. He does dance, and Rockwell does have the screen time that if you're complaining about that Harrelson, Dafoe, and Jenkins may not have. All right, so should have been nominated in this category. And it's funny because you call this a strong category, but I have 5 performances that I think are better. Let's see what you guys think. Who goes first? It is Nate.
Who do I think?
Can I get back to you again?
Yeah, get back to me again. Like I said, look.
James, what do you think should have been nominated?
Well, I was going back and forth between this, and I changed my mind during this podcast. I originally was going to give it to Patrick Stewart, who is amazing in Logan, but I think Nate convinced me that a big part of that was the script, but Patrick always brings it. But I'm actually going to give it to the guy who made the film much better than it was, Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi. I thought he was by far the best actor in that film. Very surprisingly so, especially since how he was always kind of made fun of as being the weakest link in the original Star Wars cast. But he was a joy to watch. He was hilarious. He had pathos. I wanted him to just be the main character in every scene. It was a messy film, and the screenplay gave short shrift to other characters. So he benefited from having some spotlight on him. I was blown away by Mark Hamill.
If you want to see a good Mark Hamill performance, you need to see Brigsby Bear.
Oh, very good.
I disagree with that. I mean, like, maybe I agree with he's one of the better performances in the movie, but I dislike the movie so much that I can't get down with
fair
that.
enough. It wasn't a great film.
Nate, what did you say?
I think perhaps he wasn't even thought of because he just won, but I would say Mark Rylance in Dunkirk.
Nice.
Always good.
Almost in Sally Jenkins' style or Sally Hawkins, excuse me. So much like without words. That's always impressive.
If anybody was nominated for Dunkirk, it'd be him. That's for damn sure. The one I have is from a movie that James actually saw. And I'm surprised you don't remember this performance because when I saw it, I immediately thought it was going to be nominated.
The guy who plays Papa Smurf.
No, I didn't see that. Remember, I didn't see the Smurfs.
No, but James saw it, right? You saw
it. Oh, no.
Smurfs.
Anyway, this is a powerhouse, unforgettable performance, and it's from Detroit. Will Poulter as the racist in Detroit. Amazing performance. I mean, heartbreaking.
British actor.
British actor. He's a scary son of a bitch. He's deeply committed to the texture of this character, fully invested. I mean, if the Academy, they want to give an award to a racist character this year, like Sam Rockwell, why not this more nuanced and complex character instead of the doofus that is Sam Rockwell? Will Poulter is a revelation. He was great in The Revenant as well, but in this movie, he steals the show in a very uncomfortable way. Such a great performance, great work all around. James, rebuttal?
Hats off to you. I mean, I forgot about the performance, maybe because it was so good. He disappeared into that character. It's even more remarkable that he is, a British actor and so convincingly this racist American cop. Like I said earlier, it just wasn't the year for these dark and depressing, violent films about race, especially. That may have hurt him.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, the film was not as well regarded, but like I said before, it made my top 10. All right, we got to move on, guys. Everybody cool?
Yeah.
Best actor in a leading role. All right. This one is another slam dunk. And by the way, I've got 0 of the 5 nominees in my top 5 performances. In terms of will win, this one's Gary Oldman all the way. Does anybody disagree with that?
He better thank his makeup artist.
It's going to be Gary Oldman, yeah.
Do you agree that Gary Oldman's going to win, Mr. Peach?
I do. Despite that film not containing a memorable peach scene.
That's true. Maybe it should.
He had the advantage that in real life, Winston Churchill was this larger than life, over the top, character full of mannerisms. You have that going for you. That helps you.
Everybody wins for playing Winston Churchill.
Yes, exactly.
John Lithgow just won for The Crown, the Emmy, and the Golden Globe.
He's great in it.
Albert Finney won years ago for The Gathering Storm, and it just goes on and on.
But even so, he makes it believable. I mean, yes, the guy was over the top, fine. But I believed it. He didn't push it too far. And the makeup, you got to admit, it helped. It was impeccable makeup.
I do think the makeup is going to win the Oscar. And I also, out of these 5 nominees, I'm going to say that I think Gary Oldman should win. I had him in my top 5 for a long time, but he got bumped out recently. So he's 6 or 7 at this point now. But he didn't squeeze in the top 5. It's a good performance, though I'm frequently distracted by the makeup, quite frankly. The histrionics of the performance frequently leave me dry. Kind of that old school, showy kind of performance that used to win automatic Oscars. Not that it's bad. It's certainly the best in this category. Just didn't make my top 5. James, what do you think should win out of these nominees?
I'm actually going to go with Daniel Day-Lewis. Partially because it may be finally his real retirement role. Is he really going to quit?
You're going to give him a 4th Best Actor Oscar?
I am, actually. I think it's his best performance.
Wow.
I think he had the advantage in other performances that he's won for of playing these kind of over-the-top histrionic characters. This is one of the more low-key, but also a fascinating character. It keeps you guessing every moment of the film. And it's very naturalistic, but also a character you really haven't seen before. I've never seen on screen. He seemed like some exotic character you would meet in your travels in Europe, and you would know, oh yeah, this person exists, but you would be fascinated by him because you'd never met anyone like him before. I was blown away. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the film. Daniel Day-Lewis is very good in it. I didn't have him in my top 5. Maybe he'd make a top 10. Like it didn't have he's always good. He's one of those people that's always very, very good. In this particular year, I found a bunch of performances I liked a little better. Nate, what about you?
I'm going to go with a different Daniel. I'm gonna go with Daniel.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no! Like I like the film. I think I've said before, it's my second favorite of the Best Picture nominees. But this performance, Nate, come on, as an actor, like it's fine, but it's not special. This is a throwaway nomination. There's no reason he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor.
I found it like fresh and like, 'cause here's the thing, like I enjoy it for what it is. He traveled me through the movie in a gripping way, you know, like that I think is him, you know, like isn't just the script. Whereas like all of these other, well, certainly like Gary Oldman and Daniel Day-Lewis, like it wasn't my favorite of like their certainly things. I think the Phantom Thread character is fascinating. I will say with Gary Oldman is great, but honestly, you know what my favorite Churchill is Brendan Gleeson when he did the there was like I think a BBC series.
That was The Gathering Storm Part 2. He took over for Albert Finney.
Yeah, I actually liked him the best.
I think I liked Albert Finney the best, but
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make Gary Oldman or John Lithgow that doesn't make them bad.
Oh no, of course not. I'm just going with a fresh voice and a newcomer. Let's make some room for some new people. I don't know.
You're gonna make room for new people in the Best Actor category?
Yeah, sometimes a 12-year-old wins. This year I won.
No, a 12-year-old has never won Best Actor. I can guarantee. James, how do you feel about his Daniel Kaluuya? You gotta break the tie because he and I are split.
It's a good performance, but
Not special.
not special. The film itself and the script and the concept are what are so special about that thing.
I agree.
He doesn't add anything,
I think
another layer to it.
The execution's strong. Choices are fine, but it's not. It's fine. It's a fine performance. It's not special.
Yeah. Great actors take like a B script and leave it. I know, make it an A or C to a B. And I think Daniel Day-Lewis raised the level of what PTA had outlined. I don't think Kaluuya does that with Get Out. I mean,
yeah,
it was a fine
all right,
performance.
so should have been nominated. I had Nate going first. Do you need time, Nate?
No, I'll go with it's kind of jumping off of James and just put him in lead actor because why not? Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, nice.
Devastating performance. I just think like you can make a comic book movie like have someone make you cry, and I just think that's great.
All right, Patrick Stewart and Logan.
I like you, Nate.
New friends. James, what do you got? Should have been nominated.
I nominate Robert Pattinson for Good Time, especially given that he's such a pretty boy actor in real life, to see how much he inhabited this feral character. It is really kind of an animal-like character. He obviously lost a lot of weight for it. It's a really cool, gritty film. It's a gritty performance. And I was convinced by this guy, this complicated guy. You couldn't really, again, guess what he was going to do next. And he was just really fun to watch. I'm really impressed by Pattinson. I didn't know he had this kind of performance in him.
I really like Robert Pattinson in The Lost City of Z, which is also
okay, I haven't seen that.
Available on Amazon for free. So my should have been nominated comes from one of my surprise films from my top 10 list. I said last night that it was the performance of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, my best actor candidate is Pierce Brosnan in The Foreigner, commonly known as a Jackie Chan film. It's really Pierce Brosnan's movie. It's so many conflicts he has to navigate in this movie. Political, familial, moral. He's so much deeper than the heavy normally is in an action movie. As a matter of fact, he has even more screen time than Jackie Chan. He has the journey. He has the arc. He's the one that plays the detective here, really. He does a beautiful job adding layers to this character who could have been so cookie cutter. It's a powerhouse, tremendous performance. I didn't know that he had it in him. It was surprising and wonderful, and it was my favorite leading actor performance of the year. I don't suppose anybody's seen The Foreigner.
No.
But I want to now.
Oh, there you go. That's exciting. Shaping Minds. All right, so I'm going to move on. Best Actress. The good news for you guys is that one of these 5 nominees is in my top 5. It's not the one that I think will win. This one is another one that 3 Billboards appears to have in the bag. Frances McDormand, I think, is the favorite. In December, I predicted Saoirse Ronan would win. That's before I really understood the momentum 3 Billboards had. I still think Frances McDormand's the favorite, but if we were talking about dark horses, I think that Saoirse Ronan still has a shot if people start to remember or worry that Frances McDormand already has one. It might be Saoirse Ronan's time. So with that said, does anybody disagree with Frances McDormand?
It might be the most assured lock of the awards.
Okay. I disagree with that. I think Sam Rockwell's more of a lock, but because I think
Ugh.
Saoirse Ronan has momentum. I know I disagree with the choice, but I think he's more of a lock.
Yeah.
I think Gary Oldman's the biggest lock, quite frankly. But
Okay.
but I think Saoirse Ronan has like a 15% chance. It's small, but it's there. Nate, do you also think Frances McDormand?
Yeah, I think Francis is going to win.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that's the vibe in acting world. I think. Yeah.
Nate reporting to us live from acting world, ladies and gentlemen. James is in the Forbidden City. Nate, always funny Nate Duck in acting world, and I'm here in Los Feliz. So with Emma Stone. So anyway, Nate, who do you think should win?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I go back and forth, but I think Sia should win. That movie was like, we just loved it. I agree. Like, that took you back to a time. She should win. I thought she was lovely, and she really captures this awkwardness in an impressive way.
James.
You may have convinced me to switch my vote, Nate, but I'm actually going to give it to Sally Hawkins. I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for her, but I think it's really impressive what she does without having much dialogue. And she's the heart and soul of that film.
It's the piano,
yes,
children of lesser God, Johnny Belinda mentality.
I guess it is. You know, I think she does a lot. I mean, you have to do a lot for that film to convince us that you're in love with this fish character and for us to be okay with it. And she accomplishes that and more. So we're rooting for her the entire time, and we're rooting for that relationship. I think it was a lot to pull off, and she did it.
I was not rooting for the relationship, but that's one of my issues with the film.
Okay.
Nate.
Plus, she makes Egg Timer sexy.
Yeah, there you go. Well, absolutely. That's a good point. All right, so for me, it's funny because I'm picking the same actress in this category for the second year in a row. In the should win. And, it's funny because it's my least favorite of the Best Picture nominees, but my second favorite performance of the year is Meryl Streep in The Post. I obviously have issues with the movie. We reviewed it in episode 46.1, but I was highly complimentary of her at the time, and I remain so. Expectations of her are so high, and yet she seems to exceed them every time. She has all the film's best moments. She brought Kay's vulnerability and awkwardness and fear to life. Her story, her journey are navigated beautifully by best actress ever to live. It's not my number one performance, but it's my number two of the year, and certainly the best in this category. I had her winning last year for Florence Foster Jenkins. She was my should win last year, so I keep bringing her up. She's obviously a great actress and pretty terrific, and my favorite out of these five. Have you guys seen The Post?
Yeah, great performance, and yeah, she's just suffering from being so awarded in the past. But it's a great part, and she pulls it off.
And yet Katharine Hepburn still has more.
Interesting. That's interesting trivia. Wow. I don't know.
Nate? Yeah,
I think she's great. It's one of those a kind of an inactive part, but she just elevates it. It's more like the moment in time is bigger than the role, but she brings something special to it. She's magical. She is our greatest actor. Yeah.
All right, James, should have been nominated Best Actress.
Okay, this is another weird one for me, and this is another actress I predict has a great future ahead of her, and this is Brooklyn Prince in The Florida Project. She plays the young lead girl. Very naturalistic performance, but also provides the most emotional scenes in this beautiful, sublime film. It's hard to be a child actor and to pull it off convincingly, and to play a character who's wiser than her years, but not in a cheesy way. I think she's going to be a big star.
I disagree with that. I think it's one of those lightning in a bottle things, which is why I didn't really consider it. The thing about child performances is, I think it takes a really keen eye to be able to tell when they're really strong, because a lot of times they're coached. You know what I mean? Like, they're given line readings, frequently. I mean, and this is coming from being on set as often as I am, and sure. A lot of times I'm the one that having to give them the line readings, but you have to trick them into a good performance, especially something like this. It's almost like tricking them that there's cameras not even there in something like this. And, I referred earlier, or I don't know if it was this show or the last show or last night, if I talked about Raising Victor Vargas and that, the short that led to Raising Victor Vargas. It was a similar thing where it was, the camera is more observational. And I don't think that they were doing dialogue. I think that they were sort of living. And so it's a different kind of performance. It's not how we think about acting and performance generally. So I didn't consider it in that way. She's effective, but I don't know if she was like acting so much yet. Nate, have you seen the Florida Project?
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's it's I don't know. There's just like a quality like that emerges that when you see it at that age, it's like it's special. I don't know. And then we'll like see like can it grow, or is this just like sometimes I feel like just like lightning in a bottle and then it dissipates. But we'll see. Yeah.
So Nate, do you have a should have been nominated Best Actress?
Of course, it's easily a star turn by Demi Lovato as Smurfette in Smurfs Lost Village.
Is that Demi Lovato? Is she in that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. What do you really have?
No, that's what I'm going with.
Shut up. Are you serious? We should have a screening. We should come over and have a screening. We should analyze her performance.
We totally should. Yeah.
So should have been nominated. It's funny that this performance wasn't nominated because every other performance in this movie was. And I obviously love the film, and it was a powerhouse, amazing performance. I never heard of her before, but Vicky Krieps in Phantom Thread steals the show for me. It's an extremely subtle performance that highlights the character's growth and her self-confidence and self-reliance. Her character earns the respect of those around her, just as this actress earned my respect. So yeah, Vicky Krieps, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Krieps. Kreps, maybe? But anyway, she makes every turn the character makes tangible to the audience. The anger, the need, the vulnerability. I think it's a masterwork from a new talent. This is someone that I will think will become a star, just as James thinks about Brooklyn Prince. I think Vicky is amazing. Just a real find. Obviously, P.T. Anderson brings out the best in everybody, but it's a terrific performance.
She's good, but I don't think she has a lot to do.
Well, no, I disagree with that. I think she's got the journey. She's got the arc. I think she's got a lot to do. She does it in a subtle way. I mean, you talked about Daniel Day-Lewis's subtlety. I think she's very, very subtle. There's so much vulnerability there, and it's written all across her face in small, subtle ways. I think it's a beautiful performance. So,
I just think Vicky Krieps didn't have as demanding a role as a lot of the other nominees.
I disagree with that. I just think she didn't have the clever lines or the scene. You know what I mean? Like she had the moments that she needed to navigate, the subtle arc of moments. I think it's the kind of cinematic performance that doesn't win Oscars, but really needs to be acknowledged. The kind of performance that I like to acknowledge because I see the depth.
Maybe there should be a special category for like the best quiet performance.
There you go. So, all right, best direction. I think this one is another slam dunk personally. I also predicted in December, and I think it's Guillermo del Toro for Shape of Water. Any disagreements?
It's his year. Yeah.
Agree.
James.
Yeah, completely.
Who should win, ladies and gentlemen? James, you're first.
I'm going to give it to Del Toro as well. So maybe I have a thing for the more classical style of Hollywood filmmaking, and he's kind of playing homage to that, but he's also engaging in it. I just like that style of film. This is a tough category. Lots of great directors here. I thought it was the most expressive film, like I said before, and he pulled it off.
I've already expressed my issues with Shape of Water, so I'm not going to restate them now. But Nate, what do you think? Who should win?
I think it should be Del Toro. He's the master. This is just like another chapter in his like fables. I love the worlds that he creates. He's fantastic.
One thing I do appreciate about Del Toro is his appreciation of film history. Obviously, that is something that I'm very respectful of. But for me, Phantom Thread was my number 3 film of the year. But my best director of the year is nominated in this category. And that's Paul Thomas Anderson for Phantom Thread. I was so excited that he got the nomination. It was another moment where I actually cheered sitting by myself in my apartment. Between the detail of the craft elements and all the performances, he creates a perfectly controlled and affecting masterpiece. And don't forget, he shot it himself this time. It's really impressive. His best work since Boogie Nights, as far as I'm concerned. So Paul Thomas Anderson is my should win here. He won't, but he should.
JB really obviously hated the Phantom Thread.
I've been hinting at it all night, so should have been nominated. I'm going to create more controversy maybe here, but James, you go first.
I'm going to say, since it's different than all the other films in some ways, Sean Baker for The Florida Project. I just love the atmosphere he created in that film. I loved how low-key but engaging it was. I loved the work that he did with the actors. I mean, a lot of them were non-actors. He found the lead on Instagram. And I thought she gave a great performance, and he worked well with the pros like Willem Dafoe. And Brooklyn Prince actually was the second most professional actor on screen, who I liked for Best Actress. It's a quiet film, very important film. Again, dealing with impoverished people, downtrodden people in our country, and they're getting short shrift.
And much more effective than I, Tonya, in that regard, I think.
I agree.
Sean Baker is in my top 5 directors, so we do have
very
some. I have P.T. Anderson ahead of him, and also my choice for should have been nominated is ahead of him as well. Nate, what do you have for should have been nominated?
I'm going to say I don't think she should have won, but I think should have been nominated Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman. We have such a glut of superhero movies now. Marvel and DC have just like opened it up. And so whenever there's like a new step forward, it should be recognized.
As I said in the top 10, I do not enjoy Wonder Woman. I have no issues with Patty Jenkins' work specifically, though. I think, she did a great job with the action scenes in particularly specifically the World War I stuff. My issues with the film were more script-based and performance-based, which I guess falls on Patty Jenkins to some degree. But I mean, in terms of a lot of her directorial visual choices, I thought it was fine. But I certainly wouldn't agree. It didn't make my top 50 directors, but I appreciate why she should have been. I mean, like, this is not mine, but if we want to talk about female directors that should have been nominated, I think about
DuVernay.
I think about Catherine Bigelow in Detroit. What were you saying?
Sorry, I was thinking of DuVernay for Selma.
Oh, yeah, but that's not this year.
I know, but in the past.
Yeah, in the past. Okay, so you guys both did. So it's my turn for should have been nominated director, and it's my second favorite directions of the year after P.T. Anderson. And I mean, to Nate's point earlier, directors of comedies rarely get attention. Directors of big budget comedies aren't taken seriously at all. In many cases, it's harder to turn out good material with all the studio interference and the cooks in the kitchen. That's a key reason why many bigger films fail creatively. So that's why I give bonus points to Jake Kasdan for his work on Jumanji. Obviously, I talked about the script earlier for Jumanji, but he takes a really strong script and executes it to perfection, note for note, joke for joke. I think it's simultaneously stylish, entertaining, smart, fast, and fun. And that's no accident. And I want to recognize a filmmaker who delivered the goods on something, even though it's not considered to be high art. I just think Jumanji was so good. It was a great screenplay, but I think it was done really well, too. I have to acknowledge Jake Kasdan.
And I wonder if he got any, notes from his famous father, Lawrence Kasdan, such a great storyteller. Jake Kasdan kind of sold out, you could say. I don't know. It depends how you feel about TV, but he hasn't directed many features. He's been directing a lot of television. I was a fan of his film Orange County way back when, which also featured Colin Hanks and Jack Black, who are also in Jumanji. Mm-hmm. And I agree. The script is great for Jumanji, and well directed. I mean, you got to handle a lot of effects in that film, plus take care of the characters, and he took care of those characters, which is why we put up with a film that was over 2 hours.
I agree. And the other thing we talk about a lot of time on the show, I know you guys have done limited shows, James 1, Nate 2, but we talk about the tone and how that's a big part of an unseen part of the director's job is maintaining tone. And they do that without sacrificing narrative or pace. Like, a lot of times these movies feel like they need to move quickly, and this does, but it doesn't lose anything for it. Directing comedy is hard. And he does it, and action as well. Like, there's a lot going on in Jumanji, and he doesn't miss a beat. And I think there's something to that. Nate, you really need to see it.
I totally need to see it. And, Jake Kasdan directed young Nate Shelkey in the first season of New Girl as well.
Oh, wow. Look at that. There you go. So, guys, it's time. It's the big one.
Woohoo!
Best Picture.
I love it.
Wrapping up our evening. We got Will Win. And this one's a little tougher. I was way off in December. I was reading the tea leaves in December when I was hanging out with Davey. I predicted The Post was going to win. Way off there. It really dropped off. Do you guys remember the Seth Meyers joke during Golden Globes?
I don't remember the joke. What was
What was
it?
the joke?
He had this girl bring out all these awards for the Post.
Right.
He was going to win and sweep, and it didn't. It didn't win a thing. So
Funny.
I wasn't alone in predicting the Post was going to win. Right now, it looks like Shape of Water is going to win. That's what I would bet on if I were a betting man. But I do say watch out for Three Billboards. It's the kind of like last year, La La Land was the favorite and Moonlight won. The year before that, The Revenant was the favorite and Spotlight won. Three Billboards has, several years ago, The Social Network was the favorite for a long time, and then King's Speech came back and won. Watch out for Three Billboards. Again, for the third year in a row, the Best Picture category is the one where I am the least confident, because Three Billboards has momentum. Shape of Water won PGA, it won VGA. Three Billboards won the Golden Globes, SAG, and BAFTA. This one I think is 60-40 for me, Shape of Water. What do you guys think?
I think Shape of Water is, again, one of these safe bets like Sam Rockwell. I'm going to throw in a wrench. I'm going to go ahead and say my will win and should win because it's the same film. I think it's going to be Lady Bird. I think Lady Bird's going to be a dark horse. And I think part of it is because it's the year of the woman. It's the year of the Me Too movement. And people like a film that's female driven, directed and written by a female talent like Greta Gerwig. For me, I love the film as well. I was just transported into this teenager's life, and it made me just remember all the awkwardness of that time and all the battling I did with my parents and the school problems I had. It just moved me the most of those nominees.
I'm going to say will win is The Shape of Water. It's I know that it's happened sometimes recently, but most of the time they go together, and I think it's.
But not recently, like the last several years, that have not gone together.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I say.
True.
As of late, they've gone away from that. But I also just think, again, this is unfair, but it's partly something that is ingrained in me, as well as the Academy is. I think like the big movie, right? The epic, and so The Shape of the Water just feels like that to me. Whereas Lady Bird, and I loved Lady Bird. I just don't think I think it's too small of a movie and it's not going to win.
If you guys love Lady Bird, I mean, the female-driven coming-of-age, comedy drama that I think got forgotten last year was a film by Kelly Freeman Craig called The Edge of 17. And that's a film. I mean, I thought Lady Bird was okay, but The Edge of 17, I think, was a lot sharper and more interesting to me. I disagree with you about Lady Bird. I don't think it sniffs this award, but it's interesting that we have some disagreement. I think it's a Shape of Water versus Three Billboards kind of thing. Nate, what should win out of the nominees? 9 nominees.
Okay. I'm going to say that I think Shape of Water should win as well. I just think it was delightful and epic. I just think he's so good at what he does, and it's just like another magical fable. This is like Creature from Black Lagoon meets Splash.
Nate's so highly with his mashups. Out of these 9 nominees, only one of them is in my top 10.
Wow.
And obviously it's Phantom Thread, no surprise. Apparently I've been mentioning it all evening. It's a masterpiece of character. It's a relationship story, PTA style, a haunting, effective, and lush tale about the need to be needed. It's a great work. It's something I'll always remember and be close to me. But it wasn't my favorite film of the year. It's number 3. So I've got a should have been nominated coming up. Nate, I believe I'm going to let you go first for this one. Should have been nominated. What was your favorite film of 2017?
Continuing the trend, Logan.
Nice. Very good.
Logan, that's the one I didn't see. I boycotted it, so no Logan for me. James, was your favorite film Lady Bird of 2017?
It was, but there was one that should have been nominated, and it hasn't been mentioned at all this podcast.
Okay, cool.
Maybe because it was early in the season, and there were a lot of good superhero films, and maybe I need to rewatch it. But I had the best time in the theater this year watching Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Do you remember early in the podcast I said there was a movie that we saw together that made my top 10?
Oh, wow. Was that the one you were talking about?
Spider-Man: Homecoming, number 7.
That's amazing. All right, JB, high five. That is awesome. Yeah, I thought it was really funny, really well directed and paced. Great diverse cast. I mean, it helps it took place in Queens, the most diverse neighborhood in the nation, I think. Really, I recommend it to everyone. I think because it was early in the year, people forgot about it.
It wasn't that early. I mean, Logan was earlier.
That's true. Yeah,
Spider-Man: Homecoming was in July.
early in the summer, I guess. I don't know.
I did not see this Spider-Man Homecoming, but I will say that I have always loved that Spider-Man and Peter Parker is from Queens, and indeed Sunnyside, Queens, where I used to live, and always enjoyed when they would in the neighborhood. It was awesome.
That's exactly where I used to live. What I had said in the top 10 show was that I couldn't help but thoroughly enjoy every minute of the film. I agree. One of the best times I had this year. A beautifully executed screenplay, supremely smart and fun with a twist that I should have seen coming and I didn't. As you remember, you were in the audience, audible gasps when the twist happened. It's perfectly and believably captured the youth of the character and how that interfaces with the responsibilities of power that are part of the character's legend. It might have been higher on my list than number 7 if I felt that it worked on more levels instead of just being another cog in the MCU. With that said, as far as cogs go, it's a pretty special one. I enjoyed it very much. And it's my favorite superhero character. And I was annoyed when I heard it was coming. It's like another reboot of this character that I love. I mean, I was frustrated, but it was worth it.
Now, am I to believe that in this movie, the Spider-Man, like he goes to a homecoming dance? Is that what the title refers to?
No, but he does go to a homecoming dance. So I guess it's
double meaning.
Double meaning, yeah. All right,
Okay.
so it's time. Those of you that watched my top 10 know what I'm about to say is what should have been nominated, my favorite film of the year. And it has come up tonight, but these guys, I don't think they realize how much I like this film. It's another film that was dismissed without being understood. And in fairness, it had a very poor, unfair, not inappropriate, but a marketing campaign that didn't really capture what the film was really about. Yes, it's The Foreigner, a Jackie Chan action movie. It was my favorite movie of the year. It's a movie that's also about the dangers of ultra-nationalism in a globalizing world. It makes its points in an entertaining way, which is all that you can ask for from a movie. It has the depth, it has the action, it has drama, it has a great performance by Pierce Brosnan. It was a surprising, amazing film directed by Martin Campbell, and the best film I saw this year. It worked on so many levels and was a complete surprise. Foreigner should have gotten a lot more attention, several nominations, including Best Picture. The Foreigner is my choice.
That's great, JB. And then I just wrote that down as a recommendation. What kind of night would you pair that with? Would you see this on a date night or with friends or with
I'd say with friends that are willing to look a little deeper, because I mean, I think a lot of people that were in the theater were expecting a Jackie Chan action movie, and they got the action. They got, but I mean, like the movie, what I said in the show last night, I don't know if I said tonight, is the movie, the title doesn't just refer to Jackie Chan. Pierce Brosnan plays an Irishman that lives in England who's working as a liaison between the Irish government and the British government. So he too technically is the foreigner. He used to be a member of the IRA. So the political tensions between Ireland and England play a big part in this movie. It makes you question this whole idea of nationalism, which is a big issue in America right now and in Europe with Brexit and things like that. It doesn't address any of those things head on, but it's there, especially as it relates to the IRA and Ireland. And what is really more important, this idea of these borders that we have, these nations, this concept of foreigners, who's foreigner, who's not, like, what does it matter? They were all British citizens at the time. Like, it's those things are addressed in the middle of this exciting action movie. And I think I give extra credit to that. You know what I mean? Like to have an action movie, work on that level.
Very cool.
Cool.
Check it out.
I noticed Nate did not write it down though. Guys, do you have any overall thoughts before we say goodnight?
Just, go and watch movies.
Oh, the hands. There you go. Yay. Do they clap? Do the hands clap?
Wow. Are you related to Donald Trump? I think if people want to win their Oscar pool, probably the safe bet is to follow JB's picks. But just remember, there are always some surprises. I think every year there are surprises.
Let me put it this way. Yeah. Last year, we only did 6 categories, I think, in last year's show. And we predicted 5 of the 6 correctly. The one we missed was Best Picture, which in fairness, we almost got right. Technically, we almost had it. And the previous year, I think we predicted 4 of the 6 correctly, and we missed Best Picture again. But we also missed Best Supporting Actor with Mark Rylance being the surprise. So yes, there are definitely surprises out there to be had. So we'll see. There's few enough surprises that I think if you get 5 of 6, if there are surprises, you're likely still not going to be beating the Oscar pool, if that makes sense. They're rare enough. So anyway, that's that. So we've done the top 10. We've done our Oscar preview. Tomorrow night we go back in time. March 1st, 2018. We travel back 75 years and look at another Oscar race, the Oscar race from 1942. George is going to join me. Jim is going to join me, Jim Carroll, and we're going to look back 75 years. We've all watched a bunch of 60-plus films from 1942, and we're going to dissect them and discuss that year tomorrow night, March 1st, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Hope you guys tune in. In the meantime, I'm going to say goodnight to these guys. Thank you so much to James and Nate for participating.
This is a lot of fun. I want to thank Emma Stone. She's always looking great back there. But maybe next year she'll be replaced by another up-and-coming ginger actress, Karen Gillan.
There you go. Well, if you send me the cutout, I will put it up.
I'm working on it.
Thank you so much, and give my best to Andrea.
I will. Have a good night, you all.
And I'm going to see you Saturday at the Oscar Movie Marathon, right?
Yes.
Very cool. And on Sunday, of course, for the big party. Don't forget to RSVP. You haven't RSVP'd yet.
Okay.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
To our audience, good night. We'll see you tomorrow night.